Welcome students. Today we will discuss on user studies. I am Dr. P.K. Bhattacharya from TERI. We will know how user studies can benefit a library for further development. Now in the course outline, let us first understand what is a user means and what kind of characteristics normally they have. Then we will understand what is user studies and how these studies are planned and what kind of processes are involved in carrying out this user study. Then what are the natural output of these user studies and how they are used, and what kind of user studies are available in electronic environment. We will see some example and impact of user studies, and then what role a user study play in overall library development. So this is how we will frame today's presentation. Now who are library user? So we know that whenever a person stepped into library, he is having some or she is having some kind of information resource requirement or some kind of knowledge requirement. So if a person who utilizes the information resources of a library is a user. User are also known as patron or clientele or customer of libraries. Now what are the types of users? See, user could be academic, from the academic side, like in academic libraries you have students, faculties, so they all are academic users. Practitioners like lawyers, doctors or nursing staff. So in any health science related libraries, they are the judicial libraries or law libraries. So these practitioners are the your library users. Administrators like all policy makers, all type of means university deans or any other government officials. So they becomes your administrators, and those who are into business either as consultant or as direct in the kind of several types of business. So they also require information. So they also visit library for different resources. Now each one of them have different type of information resources, and some libraries are specifically, like special libraries are dedicated to some type of special request or special kind of users, but in general academic libraries cater all type of users. Now when a user visit to library, so actually you can analyze their different user characteristics, like any individual characteristics when you measure of any user. So how or what way they are actually explaining their problems, whether they are actually well versed with the problem what they are facing or not, what kind of information they are actually looking. Sometimes users cannot spell out those things, and how they will be using this information, in which purpose they will be using this information. Such type of information actually help you to frame your own search or your own information service accordingly. Similarly, they are coming from different environment or different social characteristics. They are coming from different social backgrounds. They are different, means you can say nature of attitudes of they will be having different. So such type of characteristics users are always there in the library, need to manage such and also cater information to such type of users as well. Similarly, communication characteristics like information sources, what type of information sources they will be looking for, or you will provide them support with, what way that information service should be structured in a form of a report or in an email, or in what kind of way do you want to provide those structures, what kind of communication channel you will be using, like you want to provide them in the form of email or in the form of a social media or through different websites. such type of communication channel and different type of information system you will develop to cater such type of user characteristics. Now, when your users are defined for a library, then comes your user studies. So, what is user studies? It is a systematic efforts undertakes by different libraries to obtain information on users, on the manner in which information is obtained and used by different categories of users. Now, those information actually will be useful. Why do we need such type of information to gather? Because that will bridge the gap between what users are requiring and what your library is offering. So, that gap can be bridged with such type of information because you are getting a lot of feedbacks from there. For example, a person approached to library and library cannot provide him such type of information. So, whatever gap is there may be due to lack of books or lack of some database. So, you can definitely think of purchasing such type of database. So, that gap diminished. Can user provide correct guidance? Means whenever you are asking user that give your feedback, can they tell you exactly how your information service to be developed, or whether they actually know what type of information they were requiring? So, always it is not true. So, user study actually is a scientific method to get those information out of users. Reliable methodologies are followed to conduct such studies, and so that your information service become efficient. Now, this is a process flow. Whenever information requirement comes, so information user has some need developed, so they develop some information seeking behavior, they require information. So, then they approach library. So, either that library systems are providing them information. So, then if they are providing them information, or they demand for other information sources which you do not have, if such is the case, then it bound to fail. There you won't be able to help them, but that actually gives you a clue that what type of information databases should be purchased if you are getting such repeated queries. Then if it is their demands are met, then it is a successful information service. So, it goes to that information goes to user and you get a satisfied users. They will come back to you with additional needs on a regular basis. Also, they will tell other people that you go to this library and get those information. Now, when you analyze this users behavior, so you are actually finding the gaps in your library system. You bridge those gaps, you clip those gaps, and you will get a more and more percentage of satisfied users. So, this is how user studies actually flow. Now, when you plan a user study, when should you plan a user study? When you find that you need to evaluate your library performance. So, that is the time when you should conduct the user study. Now, for any user study you need to plan it. First of all, you survey the literature, other literature, how others have done, and from there you learn how it should be done. You fix your objective, because your objective is to develop your library services. Your objective could be develop different types of services in the library, or different types of resources you want to add in the library. That could also be your objective. So, define your objective first, and then based on that you define the variables and models to follow. Now, variables could be like what resources people want most, what database people want to search, whether people want to search Indian databases only, how frequent those databases should be updated, whether they also need vernacular language resources or not. Such are the variables. You can you can very well understand this is a type of questions you are posing into your mind, and accordingly you choose a model where you run those queries in the form of a maybe using support of a statistical database, so that you can run that model or simulation in the system to find out the result of the system. So for that you have to collect samples, means information you will collect from sample population. Here sample population are your library users, and then collect data and then analyze those data. After analysis you present those data and then get the result or findings, and according to that you disseminate that findings to your appropriate library authority to make a point that such is the need for your library to develop further. So this is how actually a user study should be planned. Now different categories of user studies are available. Some are behavioral studies, like you are actually measuring how people are responding to your different type of communication behavior, like your library survey staff, how they are communicating, what kind of channels you are using in the communication. Similarly, use of any communication medium like primary periodicals you will provide, or secondary periodical support, maybe reports, or maybe CDs, databases you want to provide. To such type of communication, what kind of medium you should use. So you want to find out that as a outcome of your user study. Studies could be measure flow of information, whether flow is correct, means it reaches to user in a proper way, in a timely manner, and where exactly it is required, in the definite form or the structure of information service. So all these things are you can measure in the information service. Similarly, you can also measure the facilities offered by the different libraries. Now when you see what methodologies of user studies you are following, it could be general, like questionnaire you can develop, you can interview one-to-one basis. Now for questionnaire, you normally develop a questionnaire and send it to a large group of respondents, and expect they respond to your questions and you get data. Interview is mainly one-to-one basis. Similarly, you can observe by yourself to find out how users are operational. In maybe sometime you can put cameras also. So these days modern libraries are putting cameras to find out how users are operating in different racks, and whether they are getting their resources back or they are spending more time there, so that you can do some improvement in the book arrangement there. So such is the type of observation you can make. So this is a here you don't need any specific users direct interaction, rather you are observing their how they are approaching to information resources. And then operation, research, study also you can follow. So these are the general conventional methods you follow. Indirect methods like analysis of library records. How much times, maybe for example Science Direct, Elsevier Science Directs are used. What journals used most? What databases used most? Such type of records. How many times same user comes back to library? In which frequency you are receiving users, or which is the time when maximum number of users visit your library. Such type of library records you can analyze. Similarly, citation analysis is another way to find out, particularly in a research environment, that how many times your research paper gets cited, or library resource gets cited in different type of reports or your organization's work. So this is how citation analysis is helping indirectly to conduct user study. Other way of special and unconventional methods include computerized feedbacks, and very much unconventional methods like you are observing using camera, how users are operating within the library. Similarly, computerized feedback means system you have created, that system automatically records how much time user is recording which resources, or maybe what kind of search users are making, how frequently, or what are the topics users are searching most. So your computer can provide you those feedbacks. So this is also a type of user studies which is quite unconventionally done. User study process therefore is first step is you have to create a sample, select a sample, then choose a method of data collection and then analyze that data and create a result. Now in the sampling there are several types of sampling. Stratified sampling is the best scientific way of sampling your colleagues, where you are subdividing your populations into different categories and then picking users at random from that categories to give you a best representation of the overall study group. So that is what sampling of user study is done. Data collection methods like surveying, that is questionnaire based survey, observation I mentioned you, so that also you can get data. Then whatever data you are getting in the library records, so I just mentioned how you can get those records. So you get those records in a written or system driven form and then derived data based result as record analysis part. Experimentation is not done much in the library, but if at all needs to be done, it has to be done in a way that you introduce a tool and then evaluate that tool to a group, that how they are using it and what benefits they are getting, and don't use that tool in another group and measure how effective their information searches were. So this is how you can get experimental results as well. Now these are example of some sample questionnaires. You may be aware that any kind of library related activities we do user survey. So there we have to develop different type of questions and mostly quantitative in nature. So those questions answer comes in frequency and different percentage form, which I have shown in the right hand sides, which give you a result of that questionnaire. Similarly, data analysis method, you see mostly we use the statistical methods when we are quantitatively collecting data from others through questionnaire and summarize them. It could be you are interviewing somebody and verbally recording some data. So there, that is the semantic analysis part. Similarly, psycho or social analysis or economic analysis, where you are valuing your service, evaluating your service in terms of the investment made in the library. Such type of information when you are gathering, like how much money you have spent and what kind of information you received and what way that has helped in your maybe some project or maybe in some your study, which actually ultimately a revenue generated revenue. So that way you can analyze your library also in a tangible manner, but that is of course a way. Now user study has several limitations as well. What are these limitations? So users information needs are extremely complex and most of the cases user cannot express it fully. So they leave it something or somewhere or the other. So in library profession we tell everybody that it's very important whenever anybody comes approach you with a subject type of query, so you have to get user interview. You have to do user interview so that they can express everything. So that is not possible while you are conducting any user survey, either without conducting the interview kind of thing. So that is one of the area, limitation area. Similarly, studies proved, several studies of user studies proved that they are inadequate because questionnaire framing was not correct, because that could not capture all the user demand or the feedback. Similarly, sampling was wrong, that was not chosen in a scientific way. User variables are such as demographic and psychological variables, because psychological variables means some user have different intelligence level. Now if you are providing service of same service to everybody, those who are intelligent enough, so they will feel this service substandard. Some might feel this service is very good. So, these are the way things vary. Similarly, some might motivated you, some may not. Individual variables in studies also, matter much, because, that actually people are, how much time people are providing or users are providing for services, such kind of variables you can put, individual variable also. Now, when you see the what kind of outputs are coming out from the user survey. Now, this is one example which shows that in library environment, these are the different types of percentage of books are listed of different kind of collection in your library collection, where books are library books are there. So, these are the different types of library books are available. So, this is one way of user study you can get. Now, this is another way which I have received from University of Tennessee, where they have conducted a user survey, and it's a very elaborate user survey where they could found that principal purpose of reading, why people are reading, for research purpose, teaching purpose, or their awareness building purpose, what purpose they are, such kind of information help our library to think. For example, if your library is used mainly for research, as it is evident, so mainly you should invest more for research publications and all those things. Similarly, in the second graph we can see that source of reading by purpose of reading by faculty, why faculty are reading these library resources, and that is actually giving you for teaching, for their awareness, for their research purpose, and within the research for different kind of personal development, library development, open way from where they are using these resources. Now, in this user study output, we can also from the University of Tennessee study, we can see that why this users, what users perceptions are, that it actually the library service helped them in thinking, new thinking process, their research results improved a lot, their focus got changed, that saved time, that improved collaboration, or that was wastage of their time when they are visiting to library. Now, such type of valuation you can also measure as part of user study. Nowadays, what happened that in the past days we used to send only questionnaires in a hard copy form, but in the electronic environment users have lot of facilities, and so user studies are also improved a lot. User has remote access option now, so remote access, they can come and use electronic resources in the library. They can also access electronic resources remotely. So, that is what remote access options are providing them, anywhere, anytime access to any resources. Now, resources could be subscribed, could be in open access domain. Both resources are available to users. So, naturally, majority of their questions are already they are getting from those resources sitting in their own desktop. So, basically they are using your electronic resources to a large extent. Now, users' information seeking behavior therefore has a drastic change from print journals, print documents to electronic documents, because that is accessible quite easily. So, their needs also change. So, when they come to library, they come with a complex query only. Similarly, scope and methodology of user study has also changed. Now, we are measuring impact of internet, impact of different kind of databases on users or user behavior. Electronic information we can plan for different users. Now, this is one example that where library guides have been prepared based on the user study done by University of West Florida. Now, in India, INSTOC has in 1964 done a current awareness user study, and then as a result of that Indian Science Abstract has come into being. In 1967, INSTOC has again done user study, and then electronic information grid framework got prepared. Similarly, Delhi University Chemistry Department has done several studies, and accordingly they analyzed the user pattern and which helped library to grow further. Project JISC that of UK, that actually created a toolkit based on the studies what they have done on electronic information services. So where they have actually used questionnaire, interviews, focus group discussion method, everything. In TERI, we have done user study in 2015 to to understand the resource evaluation of resources of TERI library, and we used a simulation model based on the library records, citation analysis, reports published by TERI, and of course getting user interviews also, and we run all the record into a simulation and found out that portion of our books are not actually used properly, so then that could be donated to other libraries, and instead of that we can have different varieties of knowledge resources which actually facilitated us to shift our purchase from print to electronic resources. So this is the output of this user study we have carried out. Otherwise, we regularly carry out different kind of user surveys and develop different new and innovative services as well. So we are coming to the summary. What are the role of user studies? If you see that in the modern world, user studies are mostly conducted in electronic environment. Nobody does it in printed form. Now when you conduct in electronic environment, you can very well analyze user behavior and strengthen your library facilities, like whether they are looking for e-books, e-journals, databases or printed documents. If not, then most of your financial resources you can spend for the purchase of electronic resources. So that actually help you in decision making. Similarly, planning new information services. For example, you conduct a user study and find out from users that user require research in progress. Means in our case we find that research, contemporary research done by different other organizations in different part of world is of great value to our researcher. So naturally we develop research in progress service in our library. So that is outcome of your user study. Now not only this actually the data you are getting these days, all electronic publisher they provide you data of usage. Now based on this usage you can negotiate with the publisher for improved resource and service both. Means you add more resources from India, you can request your publishers, you can also request them add more and more frequently all data sets, etc. Similarly, services like whether they are reporting or usage report they are giving maybe on an institutional basis, you can also ask on a user basis, per user basis. So that actually will help you to understand which of your researcher or which of your organization faculty member is studying what kind of resources. So such way you can actually negotiate with user based on negotiate with publisher and get those data also. Development, improvement of effectiveness of information system comes as outcome of these all user based information. Now last word what I mean to say, today we are going into through a area where everything is measured in terms of economic value. Now library basically a knowledge based organization, so it provides learning support to organizations. So naturally all our economic value are intangible in nature that cannot be measured in a tangible form. However, with such kind of user studies where we can put several type of questionnaires where we can show that valuation of some resources purchased vis-a-vis how much time those resources are used by different users. So that way you can establish value of your library to both for learning and also to your patron, that what kind of return on investment the organizations are getting. So with this, thank you very much for your listening.